He was the icon of a generation, the crossover king, the fearless underdog, the heart of the NBA. But after the spotlight faded, Allen Iverson's story didn't end. It just got real. In 2025, Iverson's life is a roller coaster of lavish highs and soul-searching lows. With 5 kids, stunning properties, a garage full of dream cars, and the shadows of a complicated past, including his famous ex, his journey is anything but ordinary. Yet beyond the headlines and highlight reels lies a story of redemption, resilience, and raw humanity. Because for Iverson, the real battle wasn't just on the court, it was finding peace off of it. Allen Iverson didn't look like your typical basketball hero. He wasn't tall. He didn't have the sculpted build of a Greek statue. He didn't fit the mold of the NBA's golden boy. But the moment he hit the hardwood, everything changed. One lightning-quick step, one ankle-breaking crossover, and suddenly the entire court and everyone watching was on edge. And when he stared down defenders like they were in his way more than in his path, you knew Iverson wasn't just playing basketball. He was rewriting the rules. He wasn't just an MVP. He wasn't just a Hall of Famer. Allen Iverson was a cultural shift, a reckoning in sneakers. He made hip-hop and hardwood collide. He brought cornrows, tattoos, and raw emotion into a league built on polish. He was loud, he was proud, and he made sure you felt every second he was on the court. But behind that swagger was a story few really know. A childhood wrapped in struggle, a life shadowed by controversy, money trouble, and deep emotional scars. So how did this kid from one of Virginia's roughest neighborhoods become the answer, the voice of a generation that felt overlooked and misunderstood? And after all the applause faded, what was left behind? This is the story you haven't heard, the real rise of Allen Iverson. Long before the sold-out arenas, before the screaming fans and the signature Reeboks, there was just a skinny kid with a sweet nickname, Bubba Chuck. Growing up in Hampton, Virginia, a place where poverty, violence, and hopelessness hung heavy in the air, Iverson's journey started in the trenches. Most people only remember the highlights. Him sprinting past giants, crossing over legends, draining impossible shots like he was born to do it. But what they don't see is what it took just to survive long enough to chase the dream. He dodged bullets, crossed trash-filled streets, and slept in homes with no hot water. He lost friends, 10 of them, in one brutal summer before they ever got a chance to grow up. Born on June 7th, 1975, in a world stacked against him, Allen Iverson wasn't supposed to make it. But he didn't just make it, he left a mark that still echoes through the game and far beyond it. So let's go back to the beginning. Let's uncover what made him, what nearly broke him, and why, to so many, he'll always be the answer. Allen Iverson's story doesn't begin on a basketball court. It begins with a 15-year-old girl named Ann holding a newborn in her arms, already carrying the weight of the world. His father, gone, disappeared early. So it was just Ann and her baby boy, bouncing between broken-down homes, scraping by day after day. No stability, no safety net, just love, grit, and survival. From the start, Allen, nicknamed Bubba Chuck by folks in the neighborhood, was different. Not just quick on his feet, but sharp, clever, and bold. The kind of kid who'd jump into a fight not to start one, but to protect someone smaller. Jamie Rogers, a childhood friend, once said, "Chuck would always step up when nobody else would." He was a leader, even as a kid. But even leaders take hits, and Iverson took his early. At just 13, he watched the closest thing he had to a father, his stepdad, gets arrested right in front of him for dealing drugs. It wasn't just a traumatic moment. It was a hard, cold lesson about the world he was growing up in. Every day, young Allen would trudge through muddy streets and flooded drainage pipes just to get to school. His shoes soaked, his clothes stained, the grime of the streets clinging to him like a second skin. And if the filth didn't wear him down, the fear did. That one summer, he lost nearly 10 friends to bullets, gangs, or just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Death didn't knock, it hovered. So Iverson ran. Not away, but towards something. At first, it was football that stole his heart. He played it all: quarterback, running back, returner, defender. Fast, smart, unstoppable. But Ann, always watching, always guiding, knew better. She told him, "Stick to basketball, son. It's safer. It might just be your way out." He listened, and on the court something clicked. Basketball became his sanctuary, his fire, his revenge on a world that kept trying to knock him down. Every move, every crossover, every impossible shot was his way of saying, "I'm still here." At Bethel High School, he wasn't just good, he was electric. Junior year, he did the unthinkable, led both the football and basketball teams to state championships. All eyes turned toward the skinny 6-foot kid with the unstoppable will. He wasn't built like a giant, but he moved like one. Fast, fearless, unshakable. At 165 pounds, Allen Iverson was named the Associated Press High School Player of the Year, an honor rarely handed to a black kid from the projects. But just when it looked like the stars were finally lining up for him, life threw another curve. Because for Iverson, nothing ever came easy. Not greatness, not recognition, not even freedom. In 1993, at just 17 years old, Allen Iverson's future was nearly snatched away before it even had a chance to begin. A fight broke out at a bowling alley in Hampton, Virginia. Tensions were high, punches were thrown, and when the dust settled, Iverson, a rising star and local hero, found himself at the center of a racially charged storm. The surveillance footage was grainy, the evidence barely there, but that didn't matter. The court sentenced him to 5 years in prison. Just like that. He ended up serving 4 months before Virginia's governor, Douglas Wilder, stepped in and granted him clemency. But the damage had been done. His name was stained. The media branded him a thug. Conservative voices called him a criminal who'd been let off easy. But to his community, to the people who really knew him, it was just another example of how the system targets young black men with talent, drive, and dreams. Big names like Bill Cosby and Spike Lee spoke out, demanding justice. And Iverson, he didn't shrink, he didn't run, he got hungrier. He came back with something to prove not just to the world, but to himself. When Georgetown University offered him a scholarship, it wasn't just a lifeline, it was a second chance. Suddenly, Iverson found himself in a world far removed from the chaos of his youth. Georgetown was order, discipline, opportunity, and it came with a guiding force, Coach John Thompson. Thompson wasn't just a coach, he was a mentor, a father figure, a man who saw not just a wild, gifted athlete, but a young man with wounds, fire, and a purpose bigger than basketball. Coach Thompson protected Iverson like a son. And in return, Iverson gave everything he had on the court. In just 2 seasons, he left a mark that couldn't be ignored, averaging 23 points per game and earning 2 Big East Defensive Player of the Year awards. Not bad for a 6-foot guard the world had almost written off. But even as his star rose, Iverson never forgot where he came from. The pain, the loss, the streets that taught him to fight, the false imprisonment that nearly ended his career before it began. It all stayed with him. It didn't weigh him down, it fueled him. Every steal, every crossover, every game-winning shot was more than just skill. It was a message. You can try to break me, but I'm still standing. Allen Iverson didn't just play basketball. He played like his life depended on it, because for a long time it did. Ironically, it was everything Allen Iverson didn't have that shaped him into the kind of warrior the game had never seen before: quicker, sharper, tougher. When he announced he was leaving Georgetown to enter the 1996 NBA draft, it wasn't just a headline, it was a moment. All eyes locked on him. That draft class, legendary. Kobe Bryant, Ray Allen, Steve Nash, icons in the making. But it was Iverson, the fearless, unapologetic force, who went #1 overall. The first point guard in NBA history to do it. The Philadelphia 76ers didn't just draft a player, they made a statement. Iverson showed up to the league with cornrows, ice-white sneakers, tattoos, and a stare that could cut through steel. He wasn't just different, he was defiant. And in his rookie year, he made it clear, he wasn't here to fit in, he was here to take over. He averaged 23.5 points per game in that first season and snatched the Rookie of the Year award. But it wasn't just the numbers that shook the league, it was how he played. Iverson brought hip-hop to center court. Baggy clothes, chains, swagger, authenticity. While the NBA tried to polish its image, Iverson showed up as himself and dared the world to adjust. And then there was that move, his crossover. So vicious, so smooth, it made even Michael Jordan freeze. That was Iverson's revolution. Not just scoring buckets, but breaking barriers. Telling every kid from the streets, you don't have to change to succeed. Then came the 2000 to 2001 season, peak Iverson. Under head coach Larry Brown, his mentor, rival, and sometimes verbal sparring partner, Iverson went nuclear. He led the league with 31.1 points per game, and topped it in steals too. A 6-foot guard, 165 pounds soaking wet, named Most Valuable Player. He didn't just play like a giant, he carried a whole franchise. Iverson dragged the 76ers all the way to the NBA Finals, their first time there since the days of Dr. J waiting for them. The juggernaut Los Angeles Lakers, led by Kobe and Shaq at their most dominant. The Sixers would fall in 5 games. But Game 1? That was Iverson's masterpiece, dropping 48 points on the league's scariest team. And then the step over. Tyronn Lue on the floor, Iverson walking past him like a king refusing to look back. It wasn't just a highlight, it was a moment, a declaration, underestimate me and I'll make you remember me. Across 14 NBA seasons, Iverson never stopped pushing, never stopped fighting. He scored more than 24,000 points, averaged 26.7 per game, and went down as one of the greatest scoring guards the league has ever known. Allen Iverson didn't just change how basketball was played, he changed who got to play it their way. He was raw, he was real, he was the answer. Allen Iverson was a superstar by every measurable standard. 11-time NBA All-Star, 2-time All-Star MVP, 4-time scoring champ, and a regular name on all NBA teams. But numbers could never fully explain what he meant. He didn't grow up with prep school manners. He didn't have parents driving him to training or dressing him in suits for scholarship dinners. And he didn't try to change just to make people more comfortable. That's what made him beloved, and that's also what made him one of the NBA's most controversial figures. League leadership, led by Commissioner David Stern, didn't know what to do with Iverson's raw energy and street style. In 2005, the NBA introduced a strict dress code, clearly aimed at scrubbing the league of the culture Iverson represented. He saw right through it, and he didn't stay quiet. If you make someone wear something they're not comfortable in, Iverson said, you're not just changing their outfit, you're stripping away their identity. That was the fight he carried his whole career, not just to play the game, but to be allowed to be himself while doing it. The final stretch of his career didn't have the shine of his earlier years. In 2006, after parting ways with Philadelphia, Iverson landed in Denver to team up with Carmelo Anthony. The pairing had promise, but it didn't deliver the magic fans hoped for. By the 2008 to 2009 season, he was traded to Detroit, where he played just 54 games. A short stop with the Memphis Grizzlies followed, but after only 3 appearances, it was over. Then in 2009, he returned to the 76ers one last time, a homecoming that felt right, even if it was brief. He left again shortly after to be with his daughter, who had fallen seriously ill. That would be the final time Allen Iverson laced up for an NBA game. He gave it one last shot overseas, signing with Besiktas in Turkey, but his heart wasn't in it anymore. In 2013, he officially retired from professional basketball. Then came 2016. Iverson stood on the stage at the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame, wiping away tears during a 45-minute speech. It was raw, emotional, and true to form. He thanked his mother, the woman who had been in his corner since day one. He paid tribute to Michael Jordan, his hero and the man he once famously crossed over. And above all, he thanked the fans not for loving him because he was perfect, but because he was real. Iverson never won an NBA championship. He didn't have a dynasty like Jordan or a reign like LeBron. But what he gave the game, that was bigger than rings. Allen Iverson never shattered backboards like Shaq. But what he did was even rarer. He shattered the culture. He wasn't just another baller chasing rings. He was a symbol, a version of the American dream without the glitter and polish. Real, flawed, brilliant. His story wasn't just about basketball. It was about survival, transformation, and the price of staying true to yourself. But no one could have guessed how low the ride would drop after the highs. Allen Iverson, one of the top-paid NBA stars of the 2000s, earning over $200 million in his career, would one day struggle to afford a Philly cheesesteak. It sounds impossible until it wasn't. At his peak, Iverson wasn't just dominating courts, he was living large. Lavish nights out were routine. Strip clubs, casinos, luxury trips, he'd spend tens of thousands like it was nothing. His former teammate, Matt Barnes, once said Iverson could casually blow $30,000 to $40,000 in a single night, the way most people buy sneakers. He rolled deep, to an entourage of about 50 people. Family, friends, bodyguards, hangers-on. He drove a fleet of exotic cars, Lambos, Bentleys, a Maybach, and once gave a Bentley away to a teammate just because he felt like it. For Iverson, the money wasn't just about buying things, it was about proving something, that a kid from the projects could finally live like a king. But that kind of lifestyle, it burns fast. And in 2012, just 2 years after his last season in the league, Allen Iverson filed for bankruptcy. During a messy divorce from his wife, Tawanna, he stood in court and admitted he couldn't even buy a sandwich. The Washington Post quoted him saying he didn't have a $5 bill in his wallet. Everything was gone, cars, homes, jewelry, all of it. Fans were stunned. How does a global icon with lifetime deals end up broke? Iverson later spoke with brutal honesty. "No one ever taught me how to manage money. I was 21 when I started getting paid. I lived fast. I had no plan, no foundation. Nobody ever showed me how to build for the future. And just when it seemed like everything had crumbled, one lifeline reached out: Reebok, the brand that had believed in him from the start, the company that helped turn Bubba Chuck into the answer, not just by giving him sneakers, but by making him the face of a new generation, where hip-hop swagger met basketball greatness." The original deal with Reebok was already worth tens of millions, but what truly saved Allen Iverson wasn't the upfront money. It was a smart, forward-thinking clause buried deep in the contract. Reebok agreed to pay him $800,000 every year for life and set aside a $32 million trust fund that he could only access when he turned 55 in the year 2030. At the time, Iverson hated that he couldn't touch the money. Now, he sees it for what it was: a lifeline, a blessing in disguise. That clause didn't just protect his future, it likely saved it. In an industry where so many athletes burn bright and fade broke, it stands as one of the rare examples of a brand making a move in good faith. Fast forward to 2023, and Iverson made a powerful return to Reebok, not as a face on a billboard, but as vice president of basketball, working side by side with none other than Shaquille O'Neal, now Reebok's president. But this wasn't just a vanity title. Iverson rolled up his sleeves and got to work helping shape marketing strategies, choosing new brand ambassadors, and bringing back the legendary Answer sneaker line. The media called it a full-circle moment. The kid who once repped street culture with every crossover, now helping to shape a brand's identity from the top down. But Iverson's reinvention didn't stop there. He stepped into a bold new space: legal cannabis. Partnering with fellow NBA alum Al Harrington, founder of the cannabis wellness brand Viola, Iverson launched his own product line, Iverson 96. It's a premium blend described as having notes of ripe grapes and mint, something Harrington himself likened to the Dom Perignon of weed. It's a powerful pivot for someone once criticized for past associations with cannabis. Today, Iverson sees it differently, not as a vice, but as a tool for healing. His mission with Viola is bigger than business. It's about changing the narrative in Black communities, ending the stigma, and turning pain into empowerment. As of now, Allen Iverson's net worth is estimated at around $1 million. It's a far cry from the $200 million he once had, but it's a true comeback story. Because more important than a dollar figure is the man behind it. He's calmer now, more grounded, focused on legacy, sustainability, and purpose. Once known for blowing fortunes in a single night, Iverson now understands the value of time, of pacing, and of growing through the struggle. His journey isn't just about a rise and fall, it's about the rise after the fall and the quiet power of redemption. "I may not be as rich as I once was," Allen Iverson admitted, "but I'm richer in experience. And I know one thing for sure: I never want to go back to being broke again." Allen Iverson isn't your typical businessman. He still carries that wild spark in his eyes, still rocks those shining gold chains, and talks with the same swagger he had on the court. It's what makes him, well, an icon who never lost his soul, even after reaching the highest peaks and tumbling into the deepest valleys. Just like he once defied the odds, scoring against 7-foot giants, Iverson is now battling to bounce back from his financial mistakes. This time, it's not his body doing the work. It's his unbreakable resilience. In his next chapter, the comeback may not be physical, but it will be just as powerful, and it's a comeback no one saw coming. On the court, Iverson was an unstoppable force, fierce, gritty, fearless. But off the court, he was a man with his own scars, someone who loved deeply, hurt even deeper, and spent years trying to heal the cracks in his soul. Behind the crossovers, the tattoos, and the iconic braids was a heart that had been broken by love, by family, and by his own mistakes. One of the most personal stories from his life? His love for Tawanna Turner. Their relationship reads like a novel, a whirlwind romance between two kids from rival high schools in Virginia. Iverson, the wild athlete with raw talent, and Tawanna, the driven student leader with a heart for her community. They were opposites, yet that spark between them was undeniable. They were both 16 when they fell for each other, and through everything Iverson's incarceration at 17, his eventual pardon, his rise to college stardom, and his leap to NBA greatness, Tawanna stood by his side. No spotlight, no recognition needed. She watched him grow from a kid into a millionaire. In 2001, when Iverson was already a household name, they tied the knot in a lavish ceremony at a mansion in Voorhees, New Jersey. Their wedding was seen as the happy ending to a love story that had weathered so much. But as it often goes, fame, wealth, and temptation took their toll. Even the strongest love can crack under pressure. Over the years, Iverson and Tawanna's marriage was marked by fights, separations, and moments of reconciliation. Tawanna even accused Iverson of abuse, and he spent long stretches away, caught up in alcohol, gambling, and a lifestyle that pulled him further from his family. But somehow, despite everything, they couldn't seem to let go of each other. The breaking point finally came in 2010 when Tawanna filed for divorce. Their love story, once a beautiful tale of youth and passion, had reached a painful chapter. The legal battle stretched on until 2013, but once it was finally over, Iverson and Tawanna found their way back to each other in less than a month. During a rare interview, Iverson chuckled bitterly and admitted, "I know I was a terrible husband, but I love her and she's still there." Their love may have been far from perfect, but it was real enough to weather every storm life threw at them. Together they have 5 children: Tiara, Allen II, Isaiah, Messiah, and Dream. For Iverson, his kids are more than just family. They are his bedrock, his foundation. In 2010, while still with the 76ers, Iverson stepped away from the game to care for his sick daughter, making it clear that nothing was more important than family. "I could walk away from my career if it meant my child is okay," he said. In his rare post-retirement appearances, he's often spotted with his children, whether it's attending a close friend's wedding or sitting courtside at All-Star tribute games. No matter how wild his life became, his kids were always the one thing he held on to. Tiara, his eldest daughter, once posted a heartfelt message on social media that perfectly captured their bond. Despite witnessing her father's fall from grace and reading the harsh headlines about his bankruptcy, she stood by him, always with admiration. "My dad isn't perfect, but he's the one person who never abandoned us," she wrote. Those who know Iverson well describe him as someone driven by instinct and brutal honesty. He's never been one for pretenses. What you see is what you get. He doesn't hide his feelings. And if he doesn't like someone, he'll make sure you know. That raw, unapologetic honesty is just another part of the man who captured hearts on and off the court. If Allen Iverson's tired, he'll just step away. If he's eating mid-conversation, he'll apologize, get up, and leave, not because he's being rude, but because he refuses to pretend. He believes no one should live a lie. That unfiltered honesty is exactly what has allowed Iverson to connect deeply with his community. Whenever he visits his hometown of Hampton or Newport News, Iverson doesn't hide behind tinted windows or a big entourage. He shows up like anyone else, hooping with local kids at the park, stopping by his old barber shop, grabbing fried chicken from his favorite spot. To him, fame is just a brief moment in time. It doesn't change who you really are. "I used to think I had to be different because I was famous," Iverson once said. "But then I realized if I change, who's going to hold on to the real Hampton in me?" Over the years, he's made it a point to give back, especially through community events like the Iverson Classic, which gathers some of the best young basketball players in the country. But Iverson teaches them more than just basketball. He talks about survival, self-worth, and navigating the traps life sets up for you. To the kids he mentors, he says, "You don't have to be perfect, you just have to be real. Don't give up, even when the whole world turns its back on you." That's one of Iverson's most powerful messages. Keep going, stay true to yourself, and rise above the challenges. Iverson's life isn't just about overcoming adversity on the court, it's about the relentless fight to become the man he is today. He's the man who was once written off by the NBA, cast aside as washed up, yet still found a way to climb back and be the father, husband, and son his family can be proud of. Anyone who followed Iverson's career knows one undeniable truth. His raw, undeniable talent was always matched by the storms in his personal life. On the court, he was explosive, brilliant, and impossible to ignore. Off the court, his life was a whirlwind of scandal, controversy, and legal issues. Iverson is a complicated icon, flawed, but undeniably great. A man whose brilliance was always paired with the messiness of real life. His first major scandal came in 1993 when he was just 17 years old. Iverson was arrested in connection with a violent brawl at a bowling alley in Hampton, Virginia, a brawl that became deeply entangled in racial tension. The surveillance footage didn't even clearly show his involvement, but Iverson was still sentenced to 5 years in prison for mob-related assault. He only served 4 months before Virginia Governor Douglas Wilder granted him clemency, a move influenced by public figures like Bill Cosby and Spike Lee rallying in his defense. Yet despite his release, Iverson was forever labeled as a troublemaker, a symbol of violence, and an uncontrollable young black man. In 2009, a man in Ohio filed a $2.5 million lawsuit against Allen Iverson, claiming he was attacked by Iverson's security team at a bar. While many of these cases didn't end in convictions, they slowly chipped away at his public image, overshadowing his legendary basketball career. Even his personal life was no stranger to scandal. Iverson's ex-wife, Tawanna, once accused him of kidnapping their children after he took them on a trip without telling her. Unable to reach them, she sought legal help. Although she later dropped the accusation, it sparked a media frenzy and left questions about his parenting. During their divorce, Tawanna hinted at deeper issues: alcohol misuse, gambling, and even possible domestic abuse. Iverson never fully confirmed or denied these allegations, leaving the public to wonder about his personal demons. Off the court, Iverson's relationship with his coach, Larry Brown, was often tense. One of the most infamous moments came in 2002 during a press conference when Iverson bristled at being criticized for skipping practice. His now iconic "we're talking about practice" rant, where he repeated the word practice 22 times, became a symbol of his defiant personality and complicated relationship with authority. Iverson was a player who refused to conform, even as NBA leadership struggled to keep him in check. One of the most controversial moves by the league was the 2005 dress code rule, banning hip-hop attire at games. Many saw it as a direct shot at Iverson's image. He fired back saying, "You're not just telling us how to dress, you're stripping us of who we are. You're taking away our identity." These moments of defiance solidified Iverson as either a hero or a villain in the eyes of fans, never just a player, but a symbol of resistance. What set Iverson apart from other sports rebels was his refusal to make excuses. He didn't blame his past or pass the blame onto anyone else. When he looked back at his life, it was with raw honesty. "I've made mistakes, but I've never been fake. I lived how I thought was right, and if I had to pay for it, so be it." Today, as a Hall of Fame inductee, vice president at Reebok, and a mentor in his community, the scars of his past still linger. But they don't define him. They remind us that Iverson didn't rise from a smooth paved road. He came from the grit, the struggle, and the chaos of life. And despite it all, he still stands strong. Allen Iverson wasn't perfect, but maybe that's why so many people can relate to him, because he was unapologetically human. His flaws, his battles, and his triumphs make his story one of true resilience. A light that shines not because it's flawless, but because it's real. If you were inspired by Iverson's journey, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more stories of perseverance and greatness in the world of sports.